you don't mind me showing my already completed lineups and the atrocious results that accompanied them. Okay?
All right, let's jump over to the OKC. I'm sorry, to the Dallas OKC thing.
So the Dallas OKC side of the Dallas OKC game. Okay. So I don't know. Are we sure that we're not getting any Porzingis?
No, we're not sure. I was just throwing that out there as a possibility. Dallas has been.
I would very much like to play him on FanDuel. So.
Really? Okay. Well, yeah. Oh my God, they made him set. Why did they do this? Why did they jump his price around?
Well, excuse me. So we're at this game. I would like to say that, some of this coaching staff has to have a little more patience with their players.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jake Layman, they threw out there. Maybe they bench him. They gave Luka Doncic only one start at small forward before relegating him back to point guard from FanDuel. Can you believe that? If you're going to give a guy a shot, let him have a couple of starts to position before kicking him out. They gave him one start at small forward before firing him and putting him back to point guard. And they got to be ashamed of themselves. Because he's a pure small forward, right? I can't imagine why they would even, So anyway, he's back at point guard for FanDuel. That's my long way of saying that.
This whole game is going to depend a lot on what we do with what happens with Porzingis, right? Maybe it's been enough time where they feel comfortable to put it back out there. Maybe on FanDuel, I think he would be a fine play then.
Off the All-Star break, he should be ready to go.
But you don't want. He's still coming off of years of injuries. The general idea with him was don't ever play him on back-to-backs unless they're desperate. It was the way I looked at it. But if he's out, I would have interest in Hardaway and Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
Josh Richardson would get a little bump, but I don't.
Well, forget that. You'd have to talk about the bigs, right?
Not really against OKC.
Kleber.
Okay. You don't really need a 5 against this team. But if they want to go there, and also they keep, all they do is just rotate those guys in minutes, and it's been frustrating. So not like if we get one of them in the starting lineup, sure, I'll have take some shots there, but they haven't shown any consistency to give these guys, either of them, any minutes. Even when Porzingis is out. What did we get? We were getting teams out of both of them in minutes, and I just feel like there's got to be better places we can attack than that. Maybe I'll change my mind on that later. I don't know who would. I guess if Cauley Stein started, I'd be more likely to go with it, but they probably wouldn't do that. Kleber, I would lean towards for sure. 4,200 is reasonable. It is a back-to-back for them. They played a lot of minutes last night. Luka would fall probably with Porzingis just behind Harden for me, and then without Porzingis ahead of Harden for me. That's where I stand on the Dallas.
That sounds fair.
Yeah, and the Dallas side, I'm sorry, on the OKC side, I ain't got nothing for you, man. I really just got, if you want to take the thin Ty Jerome play, go ahead. I'm not going to do it on this slate. That's it. There's pretty much nothing over here that I have any interest in whatsoever.
I guess no interest in paying $8,900 for Shai.
Shai's been awesome. Goes to the basket all the time, shooting great. It's crazy because people, had this image of him being consistent. He's really not consistent from a fantasy standpoint at all. Not like the greatest matchup, not a bad one. He's fine. Yeah, they don't have any rim protection. He's fine at 8,900. That's not so bad. But probably lean a little bit more Horford actually than anything if I was going to play anybody over here. But I don't think I'm going to do it.
Okay, Golden State, LAC. Yeah. I already told you I'm not playing Curry, so I'm probably off of the Golden State side. Kawhi Leonard, no respect. Paul George, no respect.
I don't know if I can do it anymore. I really don't. So Paul George getting scratched the other night because he had too much coffee.
Is that what I knew it was dizziness. I didn't know.
He said he drank too much coffee. There's something going on here with him. I know that he has, I'm not going to sit here and slander Paul George because I do think, he's acknowledged certain mental health things that he's had trouble with over.
Oh yeah, he sure has.
So I don't know that I want to just jump into that, but yeah, certainly from just a straight up playing standpoint, they're both too cheap and will be under-owned in a great matchup. It makes me nervous, but just make sure like you leave yourself some outs, because this is a much later game and nothing should happen. Like, this is after the All-Star break. Nothing should happen. But it would not be like, I mean, it is kind of disgusting. And I feel like the Clippers, like, I feel like they need to change. I mean, if the NBA, if DraftKings and FanDuel are going to sponsor the freaking NBA, they can't allow this anymore. Make rules. You cannot be a sponsorship of these guys and ruin the entire customer experience.
That's what they were saying. They were actually getting, even though he was only a 3% owned PGA guy, they were saying that a little bit in the Twitter stuff about Harris English today. They were like, listen, PGA, you know, if you're gonna take money from DraftKings and you're gonna, like, you know, talk about gambling on your broadcasts and like really just go for this, you have to have a better system with reporting this stuff. I mean, you just can't.
Can't do it. It's absolutely, it's not right, and it's going to ruin the experience, and everyone's going to be broke.
Listen, I understand that, like, you know, if you legit can't go and you didn't think that, and it just happens right away, then okay, physically you can't change that. Like, if like take Harris English as an example, like if he literally was walking to the first tee, and then like, oh crap, you know what I mean? If you can't play, you can't play, but you knew that he knew like an hour before. You know what I mean? Like, they have to like tell their players and tell whatever. Listen, if you're not going to play, you got to report this. I mean, you got to get it going.
Yeah, it's not right what they're doing, and that was sort of my frustration. Even in the message I wrote back to them, is that there's just so many things that feel like it's not being done right. And by the way, there are ways to adjust to this, and some site will come out and do this the right way and allow it to happen. And then DraftKings and FanDuel will have to catch up, because it's completely irresponsible what they're doing, in my opinion. But having said all that, you're right. Kawhi and Paul George, both excellent plays, in my opinion. I would probably lean a little bit on Kawhi on DraftKings and Kawhi on DraftKings and Paul George on FanDuel. Pretty much the standard.
What would really be awesome is if they gave him a Q tag.
They should give him a Q tag all the time. They should be living with a Q tag.
No, just say Q dizziness.
Q coffee.
Q coffee. Paul George, no, just very straight. Like Paul George missed the last game due to dizziness and coffee. If this persists, expect more minutes from this, something like that.
Exactly. All right, you want to talk real quick about Houston, Sacramento?
We don't have to talk real quick about it, because we could talk about this, because this is a game, man. This is Houston's missing everybody. Not everybody, but they're missing House, missing all the other guys, and it's a matchup against Sacramento. So you definitely have to think about this. Now, fortunately, during the course of this show, some projections update a little bit for me, and I wouldn't have to come out and say that I was all over Sterling Brown. So I don't have to do that. But I would like to say that John Wall is a really, really good play. I would also like to say, and you're not as into him as I am in general, I guess, but I do like Victor Oladipo. I think between the two of those guys, I think it represents just an incredible amount of the usage of this team in a very, very fast matchup. So I like both of them. 11-game slate, I can't play them. I don't think I can play them both together, but I want to play one of these two. And in fairness, from a projection basis, I literally can't find Oladipo on my board. I mean, I have to go well down the list to find him. I can find at least Jonathan Wall, at least on my board. So he's probably going to project well, which means he's probably going to be, well, maybe not going to be that highly. Why is he less than 10% owned?
See, you're thinking of you're generalizing here. Okay.
I guess so, yeah.
The problem is every game you're looking at that these guys have been without Eric Gordon. So
I'm presuming he wasn't playing.
He's projected to play. So
he's projected to play again. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Also, they have legitimately nothing to play for. There is absolutely zero motivation. Oladipo is without a doubt, if they don't trade him, they're the worst run franchise in basketball. And honestly, they might not, like, they're going to get, Oladipo is going to get traded for next to nothing, absolutely next to nothing at the All-Star break. I'm sorry, before the deadline. And I would be on late games with Houston the rest of the year. I would be very wary of what you do, because the cool thing is, at least with Oladipo and Wall, you could just switch them for each other because likely one of them plays.
Why don't they
But
like Oladipo?
it's his last year of his contract. He
Okay.
trade option. There's nothing to play for. Houston is in my opinion, Houston is the worst team in the NBA. And I think these guys are terrible. Like I think Oladipo's got some real value to offer a good team, but I think and so does Eric Gordon, who's also supposed to be traded. I've heard a lot of Lakers, by the way, with him. Desean Tate is the guy who feels the safest to me of everybody. Okay. And I like this guy. They have to play the young guys minutes. So he's where I'm leaning. The interesting thing is Kevin Porter Jr. we're going to see for the first time. And I love this kid's talent. I know he's a mess. I don't think he's going to play enough to where we can play him tonight or anything. But keep in mind, in the near future, we will be loading up on Kevin Porter Jr. and some.
I heard he was doing really well in the G League, actually.
Yeah, and maybe he does play some. He must be a head case because you watch him, and between he and Sexton and Garland when they were in Cleveland, everybody was on the Porter side of it, and somehow he ended up getting the boot. So I know he's a little bit of a head case, but he's going to kill it.
There was a thing. There was who were they interviewing? It was some. It was a woman coach, not for the Spurs, but there was another woman who's a coach in the NBA, and I forget where she's from. And she was one of the things she was put in charge of, I think, of Kevin Porter or something in his G League thing. For whatever it is, I don't know where I saw it, but there was something with Kevin Porter Jr. that he was doing much better in the G League. And yeah. I mean, give him a shot, give him the ball with a team with nothing to play for. He'll freaking score 50 fantasy points.
Yeah, absolutely. He can rack them up in a hurry, man. On the other side, I think
another guy like that.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that was on Cleveland?
What's that?
Maybe that was Kevin Porter Jr. Now I think about it. There's another guy, not Sheldon something. There was some. I'll think of some other time.
Yeah.
So
Sacramento, we do nothing.
You could always make a case for PJ Tucker at 3,500. I just feel as though if I'm going to do that, I'd much rather play Bogdanovich at 3,500.
Yeah.
With much less minutes, but I think still with much.
Yeah, I would actually rather play Kevin Porter Jr. at 3,200.
I remember the guy's name, Brandon Knight. That was the guy I was thinking of.
What about Brandon Knight?
He's the guy who reminds me of Kevin Porter Jr. for some reason. The guy just for whatever reason was out of the league or what, I don't know. But whenever he gets a shot, he tries to shoot every time he touches the ball. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the other side, like I feel like they did a good job pricing these guys. Like initially, Halliburton wasn't supposed to play, and now he's supposedly in. He's probable, so that kind of kills the interest. I think that Fox went nuts in the last game without him. Also, Damian Lillard. I mean, say what you will, but if you want to call this guy, if people first of all, he shouldn't be comparable to Steph anyway. But
who are you talking about?
Damian Lillard, he just gets lit up every night. Like that's all my point is.
Why are we talking about him?
Because De'Aaron Fox just scored 65 fantasy points.
Oh, against him. I thought you were saying he scored 65 against Houston. Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No. He scored 65 against. I was just saying that while people might flock to De'Aaron Fox at 9,100, sure, he can always get there and the matchup is good and everything. You will have Halliburton back tonight and who wasn't there, and you won't have, even though Houston's defense is awful, you won't have Damian Lillard, who just, for whatever reason, is getting absolutely schooled on a nightly basis and pretty badly. So basically,
we're getting there.
The interest in this game is Bjelica, if there is any, and I don't have a ton of him. So I honestly hate to do it because this feels like a game I want to do some stuff in. I don't mind your calls on the Houston side. I just think that for me, it's mostly going to be Tate. Maybe you do play the Wall and hope that one of Oladipo or Wall end up out. I would not be at all surprised if that happens, by the way, or Gordon even, and it gives them a boost. You think John Wall probably has a little bit of a safer play than Oladipo, but they're both strong plays and it's a good matchup. I just don't have a lot of love for the Sacramento side at the current prices right now.
I think Rashad Holmes is all right.
Mm-hmm.
What about Hield? What's his price?
I mean, 6,600. Like,
that's rough. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he had another one, had that great game against the Lakers, but he was 11 for 15 from the floor, 7 for 11 from 3. He's a great shooter. He can always get hot. It's a team that gives up shots. So I actually think that he from a matchup perspective, sure, he makes a lot of sense here. Just a lot to spend for him, especially with Halliburton just coming back, but he will be unowned.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do the Halliburton.
Yeah. No, you're not playing Halliburton. It's just the argument is just that he takes away from Hield and Fox.
Right. Okay, so Portland, Phoenix, we did this before, and I just want to repeat the same comments as before. So Booker is questionable. Um, do we think he's likely to play? All right, so I'm presuming him in. They wouldn't say likely. Well, you could say whatever they want. So when we did this last time, or maybe 2 times ago, it seems like they play every day. What I said was, Chris Paul is probably like a really good play because, among other reasons, is that Portland likes to run their guys off the 3-point line, and Chris Paul is a really, really good mid-range shooter. So for all the other reasons to like him, it's, extra special reason. And you commented, well, I mean, if as good as Chris Paul is in that spot, Booker is just as good. And Booker went ballistic in that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take, for me, I know that Chris Paul is going to probably be I don't know if it's popular, but he'll be a very, play that people will go for because like you just said, I mean, it's the new Coors Field playing against Damian Lillard defense, right? But if they keep that Q tag on for a little bit too long, and Booker gets 2% ownership or something like that, I might take a shot. So,
I don't think people are going to play him anyway, so I think you're good. You're in the clear with Booker.
Okay.
No matter what.
So I think it's the exact same logic, and I don't see a reason why not to go do the same thing. Maybe then it was a 4-game slate. I mean, I don't remember, but why not?
I'm with you. I actually like both he and Chris Paul. I just mentioned how badly Dame gets torched on a nightly basis, and this whole defense in general. With no big man to anchor the middle at all, they really are like lost out there. I know it's been frustrating with him. I don't think I'm going to probably do it because the slate's too big tonight, but I would like to see DeAndre. I mean, he's actually playing better in real life basketball. It's just the fantasy production isn't there.
Who the center, Ayton?
Yeah.
Okay.
His defense has been better. He's playing better. Chris Paul is really taking him under his wing and trying to get him to understand how to play the game instead of just putting up stats. Unfortunately, we want the stats. I like I don't like that Saric is probably going to be in, so that's going to bump my Crowder like interest down. But I am very happy to go back to Miquel Bridges again. I think that it's a good matchup for him. He tends to get 25 fantasy points without shooting the ball. So if he can shoot the ball and make a few shots, 35 definitely seems like a reasonable possibility. I kind of like him. I kind of like this game. I like overpaying for Dame on the other side. I know it seems like a really bad idea in a bad matchup, but as I pointed out before, they're going to need him to go nuts. Now, he did nothing in this game last time, and even as great as Booker was, Booker only played 29 minutes because there was just a blowout. I don't see that. I don't know that I'm going to predict a blowout in Portland coming off of the All-Star break here. So it's going to be it's going to be Lillard for me on this side, and pretty much nobody else. But I do have some interest in Lillard, which is weird because I mentioned all the other guys who I feel safer with at the 11K range, but I feel like they might need Booker to stay in the game. I'm sorry, Lillard to stay in the game here. And I sort of like the idea of running that Lillard Booker combination. While the individual matchup isn't great, it's Dame Lillard at home, and there's still no CJ McCollum out there. You might need 60 fantasy points from him just to stay close here. So I do have some interest there, but I think he falls a little below the other guys. But if I'm going to do a game stack, I definitely want to play Lillard on the other side, and not really a ton of interest elsewhere. You might get the freaky game from Carmelo here and there, but I just don't think I can play it on this slate.
You want to talk about FanDuel?
Yeah, let's talk about it real quick. Because DraftKings, my head's sort of spinning still. There's still a lot of question marks, but I still don't know exactly what I want to do. I will later probably. So FanDuel, we made it easy on us, huh?
So what I'd like to do with FanDuel is this. I want to just talk about the guys that I think are different. I don't want to say significantly different, but different on FanDuel because there's so many cheap guys on FanDuel that I think it is going to lead you maybe more towards a stars and scrubsy type build, which maybe means you're supposed to do something different. So I'll just kind of we can still do it position by position actually, but I'll make sure to highlight the guys that are different. So for me, for example, point guard, like Ricky Rubio is 4,700. Right. So that's a very, very difficult value fade for me. Also, I mean, I'll just leave it at that. I mean, and because of that, then you could go and pay up for other guys.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's I do like De'Aaron Fox a little bit better over here. I mean, like Rubio and Shake Milton are where I'm going to start my lineups over here. No question about it. That's going to be the primary what I'm running. De'Aaron Fox, Chris Paul, and Luka are the next guys with Trey just behind. I mean, that's the problem. They made all these point guards way too cheap. So look at. I mean, the price of Lillard over here is crazy. The price of Kyrie is nuts. The price of Trey Young is nuts. So in order in a way to prioritize them, mostly what I'll do is I'll probably still be sticking down with the lower end, but I will have a bunch of Luka with Dame, or just pay all the way up at the position. You know, even if Rubio and Milton get 30 each, which would be great at their price. You can get Luka and Dame, who might put up 125 or 130 between them. And that's just a little bit more appealing. Luka's so cheap over here. Again, I'm going to point out to everybody, when everybody always sees him on FanDuel and goes, oh, well, we got to play him on FanDuel because he's so cheap. Just remember, this is a guy whose numbers are significantly worse on FanDuel, who doesn't get a lot of steals. He gets a few every now and then. He hasn't had any in, 4 games? Hasn't had a steal or a block in the last 4 games.
Who's this?
Luka.
Wow.
That's a huge issue for, like, FanDuel. But occasionally, you know, he still is in nearing 1 on the average anyway. So you can do it. It's just, I'm just pointing out that's the downside, that you really want that steal block upside over here. And similarly, Dame Lillard doesn't do any of that either, and neither does Trey Young. So that is partly why these guys stay consistently cheap on FanDuel. And it is you have to get over the sticker shock, because they're still too cheap, but they don't do any of these other things that really launch you on FanDuel, like a De'Aaron Fox does, who's also cheap. And so the way I've got it ranked real quick, just because I do have it ranked, and I think that there are a lot of good point guard options, but I have Shake Milton is my number 1, and Rubio's just behind him. They're 1 and 1A, basically. And it's mostly just an ownership thing. Luka, Kyrie, and Trey and Lillard, I have all as the same ownership as of this morning. And then just beneath them, I have Kyle Lowry, Michael Carter-Williams, and Chris Paul.
Shooting guard, I imagine, is I'm going to get the uber chalk here. So Seth Curry is 4,200, and then Mr. Dizzy Man, Paul George is like 2 cents over here, right? I mean, he's 7,800. I'm trying to think of who. Well, you play Harden, obviously, but these are 2 really good plays.
Sure, absolutely. No, I agree. There, you know, if you want to go double cheap, you could play Korkmaz too in that game. I don't think I'll be doing that over here. Terrence Ross at 5.7. I have mild interest in, but if people are going to go there, I'm not going to go crazy with that. Terrence Davis, if he plays, stands out to me a little bit, but Paul George is I hate saying this, but it's hard not to want to play him. Coffee headaches and all. If Eric Gordon plays, he's a great play at 5,100. I really think he is. And if he doesn't, Oladipo is a great play at 7,700. So a little bit tricky, because we may not know about that one until late. And one of these days they're going to be traded, and people are going to have them in their lineups and not know what to do. And this might be one of those days. So just keep that in mind. But the main thing is Shea is just way too cheap over here. We got to get a little bit of exposure there. So. And then nobody ever plays Lou Dort. Even when he was 3,900 projected at 30%, ended up 1%. Great job projections, everybody out there in the industry, because couldn't have been more wrong about that one. And other than that, we got Booker and Edwards. So there's a bunch of options, but for me, I'm siding mostly with Curry, even though it's pretty chalky. Curry and Paul George is my favorites, followed by Shea, and then followed by Edwards and Booker. So
at small forward, Brandon Ingram for me at 7,700. And then I guess the hypothetical question, let's do this, is who is more likely to bust? Danny Green at 4,100, Stanley Johnson at 3,500, Jake Layman at 3,500, or let them all bust, and I could go with Bogdan at 3,500. My favorite small forward, of course, Bogdan Bogdanovic. So I guess he'd be my favorite of those 3,500s. And then again, I have to do a little more research on the Josh Hart. So Brandon Ingram would be the obvious play for me, unless you want. I mean, unless you want to pay up for Butler, I just feel as though maybe that is what I'm supposed to do. I'll let you prioritize that. But for now, I'm going to put in Ingram and one of the cheapest. I'll put in Bogdan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll skip the Danny Green. I'll tell you that right now. He'll have some ownership. I want to see with Stanley Johnson. It depends on what happens with Terrence Davis for me, whether how much of him I want over here. Butler certainly makes some sense as a spend up, but I don't feel like something you need to have. Same thing with Hayward. I feel like there's a lot of options, but not a lot of guys who I'm like fully in love with. I think that honestly, if you're not playing Paul George, you just want to play. I would rather just play Kawhi, and he and Butler would be close for me. But I think I would probably go to Kawhi with what I would guess would be lower ownership by a pretty good amount. And I think that over here, I'm wondering how Butler. I'm just gonna take a quick look at his FanDuel numbers, because one thing is when he does all the offensive stuff, he tends to be a little bit less. Now he's still doing plenty defensively. But it's you don't get the double, triple bonus and all that stuff, which is what he's been crushing at lately. I want to say there's one basic thing. I think that Chris Middleton's a better play than Brandon Ingram, and we fall in love with this Brandon Ingram price. And I just want to say there's a reason he's priced at 7,700. You look at his game log even, and what has he got? He's got a 40, a 42. He had that 149 and 42. So basically he's getting there, it's a great matchup, unfortunately, this time. So it kind of goes against my argument, but he's getting there roughly about half the time, but he's not really getting there. Like 40 is not what I want out of my guy here. And if I did, I think Middleton's actually just as safe of the bet, if not better, with maybe the same upside or similar upside that people don't realize, and is going to have, 1/3 the ownership. So I would just side with Middleton just based on the ownership side of it. And then I'm just going to mention again, I do always like Miquel Bridges over here because he can get the steals. Portland can be sloppy. He can do all the little other things that people don't do, get a couple steals, couple blocks. I really like him over here. And he, just feels like a good shot at 30 fantasy points. But right now I would have Middleton, Kawhi as my spend ups, and the spend downs. We need to find out the Toronto situation, but I like Layman, Achua, Stanley Johnson as my minimum cost guys.
Power forward, tough to fade Harris, I suppose. Were you trying to make the case for that? We were talking about DraftKings.
Yeah, you definitely can fade him on DraftKings. It's not like, I think over here is a whole different story. He's way cheaper, and yeah, it's going to be hard to fade him over here. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. So if Kristaps plays, I want to play him. But if he doesn't here, Jay Crowder, even if Sarge does play, Crowder's 4K.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's kind of a rough one. Or you could play, if you want to pivot off Vanderbilt, you could play, Layman, you could play Vanderbilt if you want. But I don't think it's just really a pivot situation. I don't think anybody's going to play Layman over here, are they?
I don't think so.
So Vanderbilt's fine. I like playing him, obviously. You like Desean Tate on FanDuel or no?
I love him. Yeah. He's the guy I really want to go with. I think they're going to give him his chance, and I think he's going to play the minutes. I think he's good, and I think he's playing against Sacramento. So those are all good signs for me. The guy who whenever it plays, I'm going to keep going back to. And I know this sounds shocking, but I think this guy may end up as the second or third and potentially the best player in this draft. That's going to sound nuts, and all the LaMelo love can come at me. I was on LaMelo before a lot of people were. I also think that he's gotten criminally overrated in this period of time. And Patrick Williams is going to be a star. He's an awesome basketball player and has already become like a lockdown defender, and he's like 19 years old. And then obviously if you can get to Giannis, I want to play Giannis, but honestly, I don't think that it's as much of a must as we've had on some of these other slates, because I think Zion's in play, and mostly I think that the Tobias Harris, Desean Tate, Jay Crowder, one guy who we didn't mention who definitely has an upside for minutes, and I think they priced him up a little bit more on DraftKings than they did over here. Yeah, he's 4K on DraftKings, but that's Aminu. I just think if at some point this season we might see his minutes in the 28 range, and at 28 minutes, I think the 3,500 price tag is kind of interesting, but if we get no Kristaps, it would be Kleber for me. If we do have Kristaps, I agree with you that Kristaps also makes some sense.
So as usual, this is what I'm doing at center on FanDuel. So the two semi well, two semi-obvious two semi-obvious cheapies are Dwight Howard at 3,800 and Kelly Olynyk at 4,500. And if you want to pay up as kind of a way to be different, you could pay all the way up for Karl Anthony Towns if you want. But if you want to pivot off the whatever, just save this for the $4, I guess. But for some reason, I want to maybe take a shot on James Wiseman at 4,200. Young, coming off the All-Star break, ready to roll. Dwight Howard, it's going to be really chalky. And then if people aren't going to play him, they'll probably play Kelly O. I just think that from an ownership perspective, James Wiseman will get 0. And, that'll be a spot to be different in otherwise chalky lineups.
I kind of like that idea. I don't think I can get behind too much of it because
no, I mean not too much, just something to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious if he even starts tonight. I don't know. The only game he started recently was the game that and they played any minutes was the game with Steph and Draymond out. So I don't really know what to expect from him. Cat I like at 9,500 a little bit. I like Wendell Carter at 53. Even with Markkanen coming back, I think that's a little too cheap for against what has now become a good matchup. I mean, this guy went 3 for 11 in his last game and put up 34 fantasy points. He's got upside because he can get steals, blocks, and most importantly, I mean, one big thing is he's going to rebound while he's out there. So he's going to have to for that team because they don't really, I mean, none of the other guys are exceptional rebounders. So I like Carter. I like Olynyk and Howard and Towns as on my first look. What is I didn't get Vucevic pulled up yet. Yeah, Vuce also. Absolutely Vuce. I didn't realize he was only, I thought they made him over 10K over here, but only 9,900, definitely interested there. So those are all my centers pretty much, but there certainly are a lot of options at every position on FanDuel and we're still waiting on stuff. So Sheets, if you have time later, it'd be great to do a quick thing. If not, we can I
have to see as not to get too much into my stuff, but I am getting the second dose of my vaccines.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, so I'm
exciting.
I am almost a human being again, which is something I forgot how to do. I could maybe one day go to a restaurant. That would be interesting.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
No, I can't.
No, I can't. All right, guys. Well, this is a little bit of a long one, but it's a complicated slate. Hopefully you're with whether it's Sheets and I or just myself later this afternoon. Sheets, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
The usual caveats, about this is an early look, that ownership is going to matter, and more than any other year, man, you got to commit to it. You got to commit to being around pre-lock, after lock. I'm not saying that you can't play, but make no mistake, if you don't do that, you're definitely not optimizing your ROI. I almost want to say that if you don't commit to being there after lock, I almost want to say you can't win. Actually, that's we'll see. We'll see if I want to go that far, but certainly you're not doing your best.
That's yeah, I totally agree. All right, guys. Good luck to everyone out there, and we will see you later this afternoon.
See you later.